Alright, so update since my last update, so progress report 2 on since I left first build. This is where I kind of got stuck. So the page you're seeing right now is actually up in my Heroku server. There'll be a link to this at the bottom of the video. Basically it just shows two different pages. Well, it's actually the same page, it just changes the content of the HTML. So this is basically where I got stuck. So the mean stack, mean stands for MongoDB, Express, Angular, and Node.js. And the Angular part is where I get stuck because Angular, from everything that I read, it was actually supposed to be really good and testable and stuff. But what happened was that I got really confused about using it. For example, if I go up a couple of levels here, so in Angular you have to load all of your modules like into Angular, and basically it's just this it's like a giant structure basically that's very granular. So this is where you load up all of your grains. These are two modules that I created, and this was a module that they had that existed already. So you have to load them all into Angular, and then to use them you have to use the Angular function calls. So it all got very confusing very quickly because I didn't really understand how it all worked together, because it's all split up into these very small function calls, but there's so many of them that I never was able to kind of hold it all in my head. And there's a certain order of how the things have to happen, and each thing has to be named in a certain way, and it all just, it's like Angular was just being crushed under the weight of its own structure. So basically I took a 180-degree turn and instead went from mean stack to the MERN stack. What I changed was the front end component to React, which is React by Facebook. And it's actually really neat. Instead of being like this, like Angular, where Angular is like split up into small, tiny little pieces where you have to glue them in all together just right. React is just a black box. It just asks you for some stuff, and it'll spit out in the other end a really nice front end HTML. So where this took me a really long time to figure out, and I still don't understand how it all fits together. I was able to do this with React, and I understand how all of this fits together. So I'm working on that now. This part was where I learned most of it. So just doing this like table of inputs and button took me like 3 or 4 days. But now that I understand how it all fits together, doing this table where in the background it's actually about to populate this table with all the sensors that I have. It's just right now this was just a stopping point so that I could make this video. This took me like half a day because it makes sense in my head and I'm able to logically fit it all together. So yeah, we'll start looking at that in just a quick look at the Angular code. This HTML that you see here is the one for this table, or this table of inputs and button, and it's actually pretty neat. All React asks you for is this render function. There's several other things, but to put it down simply, all it asks you for is this render function, and it'll put this HTML into the page for you, and then you can actually change the properties or the state of this HTML with these other functions, like this one here, which is with the button, and you actually handle it all with JavaScript. So it's really neat. Also, another change, one thing that I couldn't figure out with Angular very well, I did it, but it just didn't make any sense to me, is how the front-end web page would interact excuse me, would interact with the back-end server. But with React, it really doesn't have a method for you. You get to choose your own method. So instead I chose to use Socket.io here. And Socket.io, interesting enough, is basically like a chat room library. So it creates these sockets or chat rooms for pages to interact with each other, which at a high level, it's mainly used for actually like chatting programs. But you can actually use it for the server to chat with the web page and vice versa. So no human interaction. It's actually the two components, the back end and the front end, just chatting with each other. And so what React, the design pattern of React, is that all of the events from the web page go up to the server, and then the server uses the events to modify the state of the web page. The web page should never modify its own state. So this is how that interaction is made. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. I understand it all makes sense in my head, so it's been good so far. Anyway, that's all for this week's update. Thanks.